Sometimes in the NFL, all you need is a little bit of a change of scenery.
Another layer to Minnesota's underwhelming start. Their quarterback is in the final year of his contract. So should the Vikings consider trading Kirk Cousins?
All it takes is one little move for them to really pop off. Let us dive into 8 NFL quarterbacks who need a fresh start ASAP and which teams they should go to. Justin Fields to Atlanta Falcons. It's hard to fully blame Fields for his lackluster performance in the Windy City. He hasn't had a qualified head coach yet, nor a half-decent offensive line. Furthermore, the Chicago Bears waited until year 3 to get him a true number 1 wideout in DJ Moore. Fields has flashed big play abilities, as seen by his 1,143 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns in 2022, but he's not in a good spot to shine as a pocket passer, and having Moore as his only game-changing weapon just is not gonna cut it. The Bears are in a good spot to restart and get a top 2024 QB draft prospect like Caleb Williams, Quinn Ewers, or Drake May. So why not start with a new QB and grant Fields a chance to shine somewhere else? Fields would be a natural fit in Arthur Smith's offense over in Atlanta, which leans heavily on the run. Imagine being an opposing defense and having to account for Fields, Bijan Robinson, and Tyler Algier. Not to mention that unlike Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder, Fields would actually be able to get the ball out to Kyle Pitts and Drake London, who should be established superstars by now. Except for, well, they're being held back by lackluster quarterback play. Fields would also benefit from playing behind one of football's elite O-lines led by Chris Lindstrom and Jake Matthews. Throw in the weak state of the NFC South, and Fields would be well positioned to succeed long term. Look, I'm just saying, Fields to Atlanta just makes too much sense not to happen. Russell Wilson to Washington Commanders. Truth be told, there aren't many teams that really make sense as a landing spot for Wilson. He would most certainly have to agree to a restructured deal to make a trade work. But you gotta think that the future Hall of Famer would happily sacrifice some dollars for a fresh start. New Commanders owner Josh Harris is worth almost $7 billion. And I would imagine that he'd be more than happy to shell out top dollar for a QB of Wilson's caliber. Let's keep in mind that Wilson isn't really on the decline. It's just that he's stuck in a really bad situation in Mile High City. Put him in an offense with Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Brian Robinson Jr., and whew, you got the makings for the top 10 unit. Denver could unload Wilson and make a play for a top QB in the 2024 draft class, while the Commanders would have a perennial Pro Bowl signal caller to keep up with Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts in the NFC East. Wilson might be appealed by the idea of playing in a bigger market too, where he and Ciara could further promote their many business expenditures. Again, a Wilson trade only makes sense if he restructures his deal. If that's what it takes, hey, so be it. Denver has to pull the cord on this disastrous trade at some point, and the Commanders need to swing big. There is one place for Wilson to revive his career, and that place is Washington. Kyler Murray to New England Patriots. It's becoming more and more evident that Mac Jones just is not the guy in New England, but hey, more on that later. Bill Belichick has to get with the real times and get a dual-threat quarterback. The Cardinals should be in position to grab a new QB in next year's draft, so I'm just saying it makes a lot of sense to move on from the very injury-prone Murray. The number 1 pick of 2019 just has not been able to string together any consistency, and he should be especially keen on the fresh start. The Cardinals have continuously failed to build an actual contender around him, but Murray might finally hit his full ceiling in a new offense. We would love to see Murray running the show in Foxborough. Though the Pats' O-line and ground game have been shaky here in 2023, it's simply a temporary hiccup that should be resolved by the greatest head coach of all time. Putting Murray in a rush-first offense led by Ramondre Stevenson and shifty wideouts Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, and Devontae Parker would lead to some very special fireworks there in Foxborough. Not to mention that Murray would be accommodated by a consistent top 10 defense, something that he sorely lacked in Arizona. Like Russell Wilson, Murray would have to restructure his deal to make a trade work, but why wouldn't he want the chance to win with the greatest coach of all time? Ryan Tannehill to New York Jets. The Titans may be hanging around in the four-way horse race for the mediocre AFC South, but Tannehill's play certainly is not a reason why. Tannehill can barely push for 200 passing yards a game anymore, and his turnover habits are just getting worse and worse. I think it's fair to admit that Tannehill has finally hit his peak in Music City, and if the Titans want to salvage their season, well, they ought to trade the 2019 Comeback Player of the Year and seek a QB upgrade. But again, more on that in a bit. No team could use Tannehill more than the New York Jets. With Aaron Aaron Rodgers out for the year. Robert Saleh has been inexplicably loyal to Zach frickin' Wilson, who's wasting an elite defense and excellent production from Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Rodgers is unquestionably the Jets starting QB in 2024. But why should New York punt on the season when they're an ever so tiny QB upgrade away from being a realistic playoff contender in the AFC? Tannehill would simply be a huge short-term upgrade over Wilson. You'd love getting the ball out to Hall, Wilson, Allen, Lazard, it's all. Tannehill can push the ball downfield better than Wilson and would certainly make smarter decisions than Nathaniel Hackett's offense. With Tannehill in his contract year, Tennessee would probably be thrilled to unload him for a late-round pick. The Jets obviously aren't going to give a ton of assets for a quick Band-Aid solution, but Tannehill would at least give them some hope this year. Mac Jones to Las Vegas Raiders. We never really bought into the hype on Jimmy Garoppolo coming to Vegas. Sure enough, injuries and inconsistent play by Jimmy G have held the Raiders' offense back. And, well, it shouldn't take long for them to make a change at the game's most important position here. If Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler get more time to rebuild this thing, well, the silver and black are the only team that realistically makes sense for Mac Jones. After all, the Alabama product had his best NFL season in 2021 as a rookie when McDaniels was his OC. Now, McDaniels hasn't cut it as an NFL head coach, but Jones went from budding star with McDaniels to a below-average starter. So you gotta think that Bill Belichick will be happy to cut ties with a QB that he doesn't seem to like personally or professionally. With Jones still on his rookie deal, why shouldn't the Raiders take a flyer on him and see if he can regain his magic under McDaniels? Jones would have Devontae Adams and old friend Jacoby Myers as his main pass catchers. That is 100 times better than the receiving group Jones has in New England right now. Just saying, Patriots trade for Kyler Murray and dump Jones to the Raiders. Who's to say no? Daniel Jones to Minnesota Vikings. The reigning NFC North champions look nothing like the team that won 13 games a year ago. And with 35-year-old Kirk Cousins in his contract year, it just makes way too much sense for many to trade the four-time Pro Bowler instead of watching him leave for nothing. The fact the Vikings wouldn't extend Cousins this past offseason tells you all that you really need to know. They don't view him as their long-term guy. Not only do we think the Vikings should trade Cousins, but it just might be worth taking a chance on someone like Danny Dimes. I know it sounds a little crazy, but hey, do hear us out here. Jones is on his third head coach in the Meadowlands. The Giants haven't given him a single Pro Bowl level pass catcher, a top 10 defense, nor a half-decent offensive line. The oft-injured Saquon Barkley is literally the only game-changing weapon Jones has ever had. And guess what? In their lone full season together, lo and behold, they took the Giants to the postseason and even upset Cousins' Vikings in the 2022 wildcard round. So now imagine putting Jones in mini. He would get to throw to the game's best wideout in Justin Jefferson. Jones would also have Alexander Mattison, Jordan Addison, and one of the game's top tight ends in TJ Hawkinson. And that Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill-led O-line would be better than any unit Jones has ever worked with in New York. An offensive genius guru head coach like Kevin O'Connell might rebuild Jones and turn him into a star like the Giants never had. I think it's at least worth a shot with all that offensive-led weaponry that the Vikings could offer. Zach Wilson to Los Angeles Rams. Alright, time for the Jets to give up on the number 2 pick of 2021. If he couldn't break out here in 2023 after learning behind Aaron Rodgers, well, then I don't think he'll ever put it together. Doesn't take Einstein to figure that one out. Wilson isn't going to get the chance to start again anytime soon. But what if he went to a team with an established veteran QB and a top offensive-minded head coach? Well, that's where the Los Angeles Rams come into the picture. The Super Bowl 56 champions have a steady veteran presence in Matthew Stafford, who seemed to have some good football left in him after a down 2022 season. He's not going to lose that job anytime soon. But it doesn't hurt the Rams to take a chance on Wilson and see if he can become Stafford's successor. Stafford is injury-prone and in his mid-30s now, so it remains to be seen how much longer he'll actually play. So if you're the Rams, why not take a formerly highly touted young QB, develop him behind an established veteran, and see if he becomes something for you? Truthfully, there's not many logical landing spots for Wilson, but the Rams certainly make ideal sense for him in many ways. At the very least, it's a better option than what he has in New York. Kirk Cousins to Tennessee Titans. Alrighty, here is how we conclude the musical chairs of quarterbacks. Tannehill leaves Tennessee for the Jets. The Vikings pick up Daniel Jones from the Giants. So what does that mean for Kirk Cousins? Well, of course, it's time for a fresh start with the Titans. As we said on the Danny Dimes entry, Minnesota should trade their lame duck quarterback and get some value in return. And if you look around the league, the Titans make perfect sense for Cousins. He'd have one of the league's premier running backs in Derrick Henry and a Pro Bowl wideout in DeAndre Hopkins, playing behind a stout offensive line and being assisted by a stingy defense. Cousins could basically be a game manager in Mike Vrabel's offense. That actually might be a better suit for Cousins because, well, he hasn't exactly proved that he's able to carry a team on his back. Put him on a team where he doesn't have to pull as much weight, and perhaps he could get better team results. But which other NFL quarterbacks need a fresh start, and where do you think they should go? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.